wherever you are. The folks on the internet, welcome. And of course, thank you so much for being a part of the Real Talk with Lavi. This evening, we will be having a special guest, none other than one of our former Commissioner of Police, Dr. C.G. Walwyn. He's over there in Texas, and he's also deputy, the former chief of police over there in Texas. And he was also once the former deputy commissioner of police, but he will basically tell you more about himself as soon as we bring him in. But in the meantime, I just want to acknowledge a few people out there who have been tuned in to WINN FM along with Real Talk with Lavi. Welcome. Welcome, St. Kitts and Nevis. I am back. Let me tell you what I did today. So Friday, April 4th is my birthday, and I'm all excited. So tomorrow I will be kicking it off with birthday breakfast, and after that I think I'm going to be going live so I can give you guys an insight of who lovely Lavi is, and share with you how it feels to be aging gracefully, still in the peak of the 50s. So I want to basically share that experience with you as I embrace age as I get older in my hair, face, skin. Yeah, so I gotta say good night once again, St. Kitts and Nevis, the entire Caribbean, the diaspora, wherever you are listening to Real Talk with Lavi. A pleasant evening. Tonight we will be having Dr. C.G. Walwyn. He is right here and he will be joining us. So if you can hear me, Mr. C.G. Walwyn. Right. Okay, so I'll give him some time. But as I was telling you, I have not been here for probably just over a month. And I know I felt missed, and I felt that many of you guys probably wondering, well, what happened to Lavi? What happened to the show? The show ain't gone nowhere. We're still here with Real Talk. We're still here doing a lot of things and making sure that we bring real interested topics, bring persons that can come and share their stories, share their experience and their knowledge, so we can basically be a part of the building. And
I can't hear nothing. Let me let me turn off
Nevis.
my earpiece and
And
turn it back
for
on.
many of you who don't remember the former Commissioner of
Okay,
Police,
hold on.
Dr. C.G. Walwyn, he is from
Tell her
St.
hold on.
Kitts, and he served a few years ago. Yes, he served a few years ago as the Commissioner of Police, and there's a number of persons that felt that Dr. C.G. Walwyn did well in the police force, and of course you will have some that say maybe he
I'm not
didn't
hearing her.
as well. But
Okay, now I can.
nevertheless, no matter what, you're gonna have someone like you, some not gonna like you, but we can't forget the fact that Dr. C.G. Walwyn did something wonderful to St. Kitts and Nevis, where he was able to bring his expertise right down here to many other persons who appreciate what he was doing, and some of those very same people have got promoted, and some of them are probably in his the leadership position. So he will be here to share all his knowledge and also talk about, right now the crime rate is down, and if you notice, we have an increase in road accidents, fatalities has gone up. So he will be able to, give his expertise on that and maybe see some of the things that he think that can be implemented or maybe should have already been implemented. So I will leave that up to him. But I know definitely we have been facing some serious tragic accidents and some unfortunate accidents where we're seeing children, babies, where it is alleged that some are saying that some of the accident probably could have been maybe save a life because of seat belt, because of baby wearing the right protective seats and making sure that you fasten the children. Underage children should be fastened and buckle up, just like how you wear your seatbelt, then you got to protect your children because you never know what's going to happen. So St. Kitts is at that level where seatbelt is a must. You have an infant, gone are the days when you take your child and you have your child holding while you're driving the steering wheel and the child up in front of you or in front of the driving and you're going like this. Gone are the days for those kind of things. It's time to put that child to the back, and if that child reaches a certain age, then you need to let that child also buckle up to the back. Even grown people, if you're sitting to the back, you have all the necessary safety that if you follow some of these things, buckle up, people, it can save a life. So this is where we're at when it comes to a lot of some of those people driving crazy. I could tell you this. This evening I was on the bypass road, and what was happening, I see where, especially coming in I would say the Kim Collins Highway, I recognize that their persons are in the wrong lane. If you're gonna be taking the roundabout and you're gonna be heading to the airport, then you need to be in your far left. You cannot be in your right hand corner to make that turn heading back to Frigate Bay. I've seen people where they end up in that lane and then they're trying to come over. And I've seen it and I was like, okay. So I finally understand how to use the roundabout. And if you really follow the roundabout, even right by the airport, you see people, they know the inner section, which is on the right, which means you want to take that to head back to Connery. But if you go to your far left, that is going to take you either to the airport or you're going to go to St. Peter's area to go back on the WT highway. I'm not sure if that's the highway, but yeah. But right now, I feel that there's a lot of miseducation when it comes to understanding the road. There's a lot of people always in a rush. Tonight, my experience, I was in Sandy Point. It was raining, and when it started to rain, most of the time I will turn on the heat and not the air conditioner because you want to be able to see so your glass is not frosted. But I must commend those drivers on the road. I see where they was giving way to the traffic, where there's some cars that will be on the side, and the vehicles actually stop and flashing the lights to tell you, well, it's okay to come. So big props to those persons who are directing the traffic and understanding how it is to be courteous while driving on the road. That can help make the traffic flow better, and it can help save a life. So this is what has been happening down here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and of course all over they have accidents. And as someone made a post on Facebook, and they said, by matter of fact on social media, they say cars on the road, but it's people driving these cars. And it makes sense. Like people will say, oh, St. Kitts is the worst, St. Kitts is this, St. Kitts is that. St. Kitts is a place. It's people live in St. Kitts. So we got to be careful when we're talking about your island and you're knocking down your country. You got to take a look, make a U-turn and look at yourself, because it's people that live in St. Kitts. The country ain't do people a thing. Yeah, the country ain't do people a thing. It's people. What are you doing for your country? Once again, it's a beautiful Monday. I'm here waiting for Dr. C.J. Walwyn, and they give me the okay to say that he's ready to come in. So, a pleasant good night, Mr. Well, Doc, let me do it right. Let me do your entrance right. A pleasant good evening to Dr. C.J. Walwyn. How are you doing?
Good evening, ma'am. How are you?
I'm not hearing you loud enough.
Good evening. How are you?
Now that's sounding much better. I am wonderful. Don't you see something different about me?
Yes, I'm looking at your hair. Yes, ma'am. And for the record, I have never met you personally, so we have only met like this. For people
That's
who are
true.
listening,
Right.
we have never physically met.
Yes. Officially now, right?
Yes.
Right. I have to let everyone out in Radio Land know that just about 2 years ago when Real Talk came on the airways and on social media, I reached out to you and you was the first guest via telephone. And I would have never even imagined in 2025, 2 years after, we will be like this on WINN FM. So I must say that WINN FM, congratulations also because it's an improvement.
Yes, you have done a great job with this program, and you're reaching people all across the diaspora. So it's a very good program.
Well, thank you. The aim when I decided to do this, it was not even about me. I recognize that when we look at mainstream, most of it is either officials, like when you look at the big reporters and stuff like that. So I felt that where I wanted to come in, if I could be doing more community work, maybe persons that we would normally hear, like the indigenous and everyone, matter of fact, but to focus on and reaching some of the topics that we won't normally get to hear or hear as often. So it was very nice to know that after 2 years, you're here and you never take me for granted, and you never even judge me without any hesitance. You was able to be here and also been following the Real Talk with Lavi and other programs here in St. Kitts and Nevis. But tonight, Dr. Walwyn, I would like you to tell the people, I know you was a former commissioner, but give them a little more up to date as to who is Cedri Walwyn.
Well, good evening to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis and those in the diaspora who are listening. Your show reaches a lot of people. As a matter of fact, I have a friend, he's in charge of police and military in Kenya, and he asked me to make sure we send him your recording tonight. I was born in St. Kitts. As a matter of fact, I was born on Birch Street. If you go to the Bastia police station and you're facing the front door, that road that's to the right, if you go up that road and make a right on King Street, as soon as you make a right on King Street, I was born in that little alley on the left.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's where I was. Yeah, that's where I was born. My mother, she migrated to or emigrated to St. Croix. So she was raised in St. Croix. And all of her children after me went to St. Croix. So even though I was born in St. Kitts at the age of 13, I moved to St. Croix. I am a Walwyn because of my mother, but I'm a Joseph because of my father. My family history on my mother's side, it's interrelated in the sense that I'm related to Jonelle Powell, I'm related to Denzel Douglas, I'm related to Dr. Drew, I'm related to your Mr. Hanley, and if you want to get technical, Dr. Sebastian and I, the late governor, and I had the same great grandparents on my father's side. So my foot is on each side of the aisles, so to speak, in St. Kitts.
Oh,
I
wow.
believe that St. Kitts and Nevis is a country that is still growing. You know, while we were there, we were asked let me rephrase that. They put out a search for a new commissioner of police, and among 7 people who attended or who applied, I was selected by the government of the day back then as the commissioner of police. And because of my connections between Texas and Florida, we were able to do a whole lot of things. I heard you mention a while ago about traffic crashes. The reason why I didn't use the word accidents is because they're not accidents. They can be prevented. So they're called crashes. And so
I learned something new
brought
now.
Yes, they're called crashes. And so what we were doing when we were there, we brought in an instructor from Orlando, and he trained some of our officers on how to ride police motorcycles because that was his job in Orlando to train you seen the sheriff office here. I'm in Orlando tonight. They um, they had a system where they go out and they enforce traffic using the motorcycle. So we did that in St. Kitts. Plus, I also brought in the tasers, not tasers, sorry, which we did, but the radar guns, and we trained not only the police but the traffic wardens in that. And we were about to set up a highway patrol in St. Kitts for traffic enforcement, but we had a change in government, and so I don't know what happened after that. My present job right now, as you mentioned earlier, I am the chief of police and emergency management in Texas in a 4-county area. The state of Texas set up the college. I work at a college that set up that college to serve 9 counties, but I'm a police chief in 4 different cities and in 4 different counties in Texas. I served as commissioner in St. Kitts previously. I served as the deputy commissioner of police operations in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and now I'm chief of police in Texas, and I have the same status as a Texas state trooper because I am in more than 1 county in
Can I
Texas.
ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
With all those places that you have served, how do you compare them in terms of when you was commissioner of police in St. Kitts?
Well, the thing that I've learned in St. Kitts is that the people in St. Kitts only have a reference point from St. Kitts. So I never judge whomever was before me because they only knew St. Kitts. But me having had the experience to serve in all these different areas, I take a little piece from every place. And when I was in St. Kitts, you may not believe this, but I had a tourist come off the ship one time in St. Kitts, and my sergeant from Orlando, before I retired, sent him over to St. Kitts to meet me at the station. When he got there, we had just created the tourist patrol. That was created it was created under the leadership of former Commissioner Williams. And so what we did, they were wearing black shirt and white pants. And what we had was every morning when a cruise ship comes in, we send these guys out and they would stay visible until the end of the tour for the tourist ship. We used the Disney. What I learned in Disney, I brought to St. Kitts, so we kept the tourists safe.
Oh,
Well,
nice.
this guy saw what I was doing. He picked up his phone and called Portland, Oregon, and said, "Hey, we found someone who can use our uniforms. They were just changing the uniform." And he called that person. They gave me every piece of uniform that was still brand new from Portland, Oregon. And Sergeant Sampson and I went over to Portland, Oregon, picked him up, took him to Orlando. They drove him to Orlando on their own dime. And we have a guy in need in Orlando, Mr. Nisbet Shipping, and he shipped those to St. Kitts. So our tourist patrol was dressed out in a nice uniform donated by somebody who came on a cruise ship and saw what we were doing. So that's what you do. When you're in St. Kitts, you try to network, and that's what we were doing.
Um, did you think in your time when you was a former commissioner of police that you have brought change to the police force here in St. Kitts and to the officers and to the people, to the country?
Oh, I know I did. Because what we did was we created sister partnerships with the Orange County Sheriff's Office. We created sister partnerships with the Houston Police Department, sister partnerships with the Virgin Islands Police, and sister police partnerships with the Harris County Sheriff's Office in Houston. In St. Kitts, and I don't know if you still have it, but when I came to St. Kitts, police officers, once they went to the academy, they never shot a gun again. They never fired a weapon again. And so my son, who's in St. Croix, he told me, he says, Pops, they're about to get rid of the firearms training simulator. I think you should apply for it. It just so happened that the chief of police in St. Croix and I grew up together on St. Croix. We were in the same police explorer program together. And I made the phone call and he gave us the firearms training simulator. St. Kitts had to buy a laser tip that cost about $70 to $100. I went to Orlando and bought it myself, brought it back, fixed it, and we put every customs agent, every soldier, and about 200 and some police officers through that system. And so now they had a choice of shoot and don't shoot because they were trained for that. Also, in St. Kitts, when I got there, we were using firearms that were donated to the RSS by the New York Police Department. These were what we call Smith & Wesson 45 or 6 9mm. They were going obsolete. And so they gave them to Barbados, and St. Kitts was borrowing guns from Barbados because we didn't have any weapons in St. Kitts. So under the government, I made my case, and we were able to buy enough weapons and enough M16s for the police and the military. So we made sure we increased our security from that standpoint. Then the police academy, because I'm a police instructor here in Florida and there in Texas where I work, we were able to get the U.S. Department of Justice to bring us courses at the police academy, and we never closed the police academy. As a matter of fact, Anguilla called me one day and asked me if I could permit some of their officers to come and go to the academy in St. Kitts. We were starting to develop a name in St. Kitts as a place to train. And so we didn't have the housing for their people. So the former Prime Minister, Dr. Douglas, he introduced me to the guy that owned the Marriott, Vic DeZen, I believe his name was. And Vic built, if you drive by the police academy up there in Ponds Pasture, you will see a building there. That building was designed for women to attend the academy. But when I left, the people in the gazetted area, they decided to make it their home. But that was donated for women to attend the academy from other islands by staying in that building. That's just a few of the things that we did, but we also brought a lot of training in. You talked about children earlier. We were able to, through Houston Police, bring in a program. We also brought one in through Orlando, brought in a program. The program from Orlando was going to cost us $16,000 basically a month, and we got it free because when I got sworn in as your commissioner in St. Kitts, the sheriff from Orlando himself came along with my captain and my sergeant. They came to St. Kitts and introduced me to the people of St. Kitts. And the sheriff then, who is now the mayor of Orange County in Orlando, he ensured that whatever I wanted for this police department, we got. As a matter of fact, bulletproof vests. When I came to St. Kitts, they had one bulletproof vest in the police department. One. I was there, one bulletproof vest in Bastille. And I was there in 2011. And the bulletproof vest was stamped 1998. It came from Canada. So what we do here in Orlando, when I was a deputy here, every 2 years they switch out our vests. The vests are good for 5 years. They switch them out every 2 years and replace them, and they would send them to South America. I was able to talk to the sheriff then, and we were able to get those vests, over 300 vests. We got those vests to come to St. Kitts. So every police, most of your soldiers, most of customs, they all had bulletproof vests because they were donated. And then I had the Ross.
So they get them for free then?
I got them for free, yes ma'am. I got them donated.
Nice.
And so we were using those. And then Ross University, we had a good relationship with them because they said they saw the vision that we had for St. Kitts as a police agency. And so they decided to buy some more vests. While we were there, we also had partnership with DEA. Matter of fact, we got a truck. We got a truck from the DEA for the drug squad in St. Kitts. We got night vision goggles because people were saying that they were bringing in guns over in the peninsula. So we went to the Marriott. There's a group that we would meet at the Marriott, and they gave us a vehicle to patrol over in the peninsula at night. So no more guns was coming in there. We went a step further. We went to Houston for the Kittians living in the Houston area, and we were able to get 4 police bicycles. And you saw those riding in the park, not the park, the square. During the day, you would see them riding around town, police on bicycles, because those bicycles were $1,200, and we got 4 of those free from Houston because people in the diaspora, they really want to help what was happening at home. And so they contributed. So yes, we did make a difference. And I can tell you a whole lot of other things that we did.
Wow, that's
But I'm gonna
really
let you
nice to
talk.
hear. You know, I gotta say congratulations to those persons out there in the diaspora that really, as you said, want to help and actually helping. That's really
Yes.
nice to hear.
Yes, yes, they did. Yeah, we also had. I don't know if you was there then, but we had 32 motorcycles. We got 16 free and paid for 16. And the only reason why we got the 16 free, the first time was when we were initiating the call from the Marriott. This lawyer from Michigan, he heard us. He heard what I was saying. When it was over, he pulled me aside and said, "If you believe in what you're saying, I can help you." He said, "I own a motorcycle company in China. How many you need?" This guy offered me 64 motorcycles. I said, "I don't have a place to put them." So we took 16. And he sent me 16 motorcycles with the extra parts, and we ended up buying 16 later. And we used those for patrol because gas was expensive in, well, I guess it still is expensive in St. Kitts, and the motorcycles could get the same job done. But we had motorcycles up and down St. Kitts patrolling for high visibility.
Right.
And we saw crime reduce as a result.
Nice. Before you came in earlier, I was talking about the crime rate has been down, which is a good thing, but we also saw an increase in the road crashes. I'm not saying accident, you just told me the word is crashes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, but while we're seeing road crashes, we're also seeing a lot of fatalities.
Yes. Yes.
How would you, what is your take on this in terms of your professionalism when you was the commissioner of police, in terms of like, for instance, what is happening here that many people are talking about right down in St. Kitts and Nevis, where people are saying that they don't have enough, the signs are not visible, and they think that they really need to make sure in a time like this, because we have more vehicles on the roads. We now have traffic lights, and one of the things that I have seen while I'm driving, because especially when you live outside and you're accustomed of traffic signs, like I would see people, for instance, when you're in the right lane to make a right turn, the persons, if they're waiting on the hour, and if the hour is not there, even though they have the green light, some of them would literally stay there because they're not seeing the hour to make that either right or left turn, right? And another thing that I've seen down here, in America, you can make a left, a yield on a red,
A right
a right turn,
Yeah, right.
right. Sorry, I'm saying right because
No, you're doing it right. You can make a right turn on red, but you can also make a yield if it's flashing yellow.
Correct,
To the left.
absolutely. So
Yes, okay.
I'm just saying this, that I feel that sometimes maybe it's if a lot of persons are more educated of how to use these road signs, if it's not applied to St. Kitts, maybe the persons who are doing the traffic when they're having their talk, maybe this is something to look into. Because, for instance, if you're coming up, where College Street is, right, Doctor?
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
so College Street, if you're going to make a left turn, if the light is red, why sit there waiting for the light to turn green when nothing is coming from the opposite side? So I've seen where I think it's time to do those stops, because I asked someone, and they said if I make a traffic warden, if I make the left turn, they can give me a ticket. And I feel like as St. Kitts is evolving, like I said, there's certain simple things that can, once you're informed, I think it is okay if you're in College Street and the light is red and you're making a left turn and nothing is coming, why sit there to back up the traffic? But then again, this is St. Kitts, so we do how, to say, you do what Rome do. But I just think that it's a very is a time to start really looking at some of these things to inform the public, and it can help save accident. It can help flow the traffic as well. And for instance, even like pedestrians in terms of in the school zone, but also pedestrians need to understand how to use the walkway. I've seen where persons are driving and a pedestrian will just come and just walk, just they don't wait, they don't look, they don't stop to do nothing. So I think it is time that all of us need to get this talk and make sure we can get it on the airways so persons could really understand how to really maneuver on the streets and on the road. And this goes out to myself as well.
I agree with you. Let's deal with the first thing first. You talked about the flashing lights, making a left. Um, if you're going up to College Street
Yes.
and there's no traffic coming, um, the, and then again, this is going to take technology for saying it's in years, but if you notice when you were in the States and you pull up to a light, there's some lines in the street. They have a magnet at the bottom in the street. And if your car pulls up there and there is no other traffic, now it will go ahead and activate the light. So the flashing yellow light will tell people if nothing is coming, you can turn left because it's flashing yellow. If it's not flashing yellow, if it's red, then you know you need to stop. But if it's flashing yellow and nothing is coming, then you can yield and go to the left. But that's going to be for your traffic enforcement people. You asked, no, you didn't say that. You didn't say that. Yeah, yeah. Yes, you didn't say that, and so I'm just writing off of what you said or what I think you're saying. So it is worth the Traffic Enforcement Authority in St. Kitts to start looking at this. The thing that we need now in St. Kitts, based on what I'm hearing, you talked about the crashes, you talk about the increase in fatalities, and you speak about um, the severity of these crashes. We have seen people losing limbs because of crashes in the Federation.
Yes.
It is time for us to get automated traffic enforcement. Automated traffic enforcement has been shown to reduce crashes and fatalities by 20 to 40%. Now, it does come at a cost, and I was able at one point to engage with a company that does this for a living, and they were willing to bring the system to St. Kitts to do a test. But the people in St. Kitts have to make the decision as to whether they want to do the test or not. So it is still available for them to do this. But what this system does, and it's being used in a lot of places. You said you were recently in the States. If you ever got to Orlando and you see a school zone, you notice there are flashing lights in the school zone. Well, the law is here that they're supposed to have a camera in the school zone, every school zone, so that if you're speeding through a school zone, this camera will take your picture of your plate on your car. It'll send you a copy of the violation. You have the choice to either pay it or to fight it. If you fight it and you lose, you pay. If you don't show up to the hearing, it goes to the DMV. So when you go to register your car, you can't do it because you have an outstanding violation you haven't paid. Well, St. Kitts can do the same thing. The system that I would have introduced to St. Kitts through this company, which I got nothing from it. I was just trying to make my country safer. And what we would have done was when you are in violation, in other words, when they get your picture for speeding or whatever violation, we can even do cell phones, we can do seatbelt violations. The camera can take those. It will mail you a picture to the address on the license plate. And you got 30 days because it's going to send a copy to traffic. It's going to send a copy to court after 30 days. If you don't make a court appointment in that 30 days, it sends it over to Inland Revenue and it's attached to the registration or renewal of registration for your vehicle. So when you go up to register your vehicle and you didn't pay it, you can't renew your car until you pay that. And right there, you didn't use any bodies. It's automated. The second thing is we have a lot of traffic wardens, and they can be trained. For instance, on the Bay Road, you can have them with the radar gun. You can have them up by the airport after you pass the airport before you get to Connery. That's where I used to have my officers doing the enforcement. You can have them there with the handgun, and they can record all that stuff. Because if you have a stationary camera, people know where the camera is, and they're going to slow down when they get there, which is what you wanted to slow down. But you also have other areas where you can physically put a traffic warden, not tie up a police officer, and use the handheld device, and it does the same thing. So traffic enforcement that is automated can work in St. Kitts. They have been shown to reduce crashes and fatalities by 20 to 40%. And the St. Kitts, whoever's in charge of St. Kitts in traffic enforcement, they can get with me through you, or some of them know how to get a hold of me, and I can put them in touch with the company, because I know that I heard that there's somebody in St. Kitts who can do this, but this was about almost a year ago and nothing has been done. And the company that person in St. Kitts has to pay to use the system, because this company owns the rights. This company was coming and giving it to them for free to see if it's something they want. So they still have the options. They can talk. But you want to something right there with that.
Can I ask you? This is just your expertise, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So persons, motorists, person like cyclists, right?
Uh-huh.
As a police officer, I'm just asking you, so maybe this can help the public. If a cyclist or by someone riding a bicycle is on the road riding, and they have maybe they're not licensed, or they don't have the right license for whatever reason, how would you, as a commissioner of police, um, indicate with the person if you want to pull them over without basically making them get into an accident or putting them in fear? How would you approach something like
Okay. Your question
give?
your question is twofold. And so I'm going to answer you twofold. One, when I was in St. Kitts, I created a bunch of procedures for the police. This was based on accreditation. I don't know if you're aware, but the RSS is now trying to get accreditation for police agencies
Nice.
across the Caribbean. 10 years ago, when I left St. Kitts, I had done that in St. Kitts. And the RSS took our stuff from St. Kitts. And you can confirm this with Colonel Wallace, because he knows, because he was there. And they took our stuff from St. Kitts and they made it their own. Now, you cannot, well, you should not. Most police agencies will tell their officers in their policies and procedures not to chase motorcycles. That's the first thing. You don't chase anybody, because 9 out of 10 times you know who they are. It's a small community. You know who they are.
Right.
Go by when they're home and take the bike and impound it. But police should not be allowed to do any high-speed chases, especially in St. Kitts. That's number one. In my agency, we are guided by the best practices of the Texas Chiefs of Police Association. We do not chase anyone, period. If it's a traffic, you don't chase them. When I was here in Orlando, if it's traffic, we don't chase them. In the Virgin Islands, we don't chase them, because people can get hurt. And by the way, the recent fatality that they had in St. Kitts, I read something today from the police. I'm assuming it says Facebook. They're saying that the person passed the police car and the police car was not involved, and the person ended up crashing with another vehicle. And so I just want to say, for transparency, that person is my cousin. That's my mother's brother's grandson. All right. His father is my cousin. my mother's
Condolences
nephew.
to you and your family.
Thank you. And then I saw a video of another young man that was being arrested because he was upset. At the time, he didn't realize, but he was also the cousin of the kid that died.
Oh, wow.
But he didn't know that was his cousin. That young man, his grandfather, is also my mother's brother. So two family members that night. But to go back to what you're asking with regard to speeding, it should become, and I cannot because St. Kitts is their own thing. I can only say what's here in America and in the two states in where I've served as a police and in the territory where I've served as a police, you do not chase vehicles. It's not worth it. All right.
Even
If
if
you
they
notice,
have, even if the license plate is not
no,
current,
no. You don't.
even if it's
Again,
a minor,
that's
if it's a minor,
do not chase them. You know who it is. Why are you conducting a high-speed chase? And I'm not saying the police did. Please don't, whoever's listening, I'm not saying the police did because based on what I saw, the police was stationary. But I'm saying as a rule in St. Kitts, it should be a policy.
and also, Dr. Walwyn, we speaking in general because this could happen to anyone. So this is general knowledge.
Right,
Yes.
right. And so no police agency that I know that I have worked for has a chase policy that permits officers to chase people for traffic. If it's a felony, it's different. But if it's a traffic violation, you do not chase people. You know who they are, go get them later. But to start speeding and putting people at risk, you don't do that. And I had a bunch of policies that we had in St. Kitts when I was there, the best practices. But once I leave, whoever comes after me can change all that. I made sure that while I was there, we had no high-speed chases because that's something that is not supported. So to answer your question, doesn't matter whether it's a minor, doesn't matter whether it's an adult, the law should be that no chasing for traffic, period.
Wow.
That's my answer.
All right, folks,
Okay.
it is, let me see what time it is. It is 8:45. You're listening to Real Talk with Lavi. And I have here in the studios with us, our guest is none other than Dr. C.G. Walwyn, a former Commissioner of Police to St. Kitts and Nevis, and he is the current, present Chief of Police in Texas. Dr. Walwyn, in your time, like I said, here in St. Kitts and Nevis, what do you see in when you was a police as of now, especially when you see all the changes? Like I said, in your time, did they have traffic lights?
No, there were no traffic lights.
There was
I've
no
seen a lot
traffic
of
lights.
no. I've seen a lot of improvements since I left in terms of traffic, and St. Kitts need to be applauded. We do have a lot of cars in St. Kitts,
Yes.
and we need more traffic enforcement in St. Kitts. We need to utilize what we have. We have traffic wardens. If they need to be trained, you can do an 8-hour training and show them how to do certain things to help that. I saw where the government said last year that they had invested or they had secured monies to help improve public safety. So again, automated traffic enforcement is one way, that you can help that. I've also seen where we've had you said earlier, a reduction in some of the crime that we have. And I have some statistics here from St. Kitts Police, and I applaud the current police administration, for their efforts, along with the National Security Advisor, because a lot of these things that are being put in place, it takes time. One of the benefits of the previous government is that the things that we had put in place, or some of the things we put in place when we were there, it takes 5 years for stuff, 3 to 5 years for stuff to work. So even after we left, some of those things were already in place, and we could see the downward trend of crime. But then when the new government, the present government, took over, they were coming off the end of the successes of the previous government. And then we saw where their crime started rising up, because crime is cyclical. And so you have to put things in place. For instance, you may stop all the bad boys from doing certain things. But then when you lock up all the bad boys, what you have done is create a vacuum in that community for younger guys to now step up, because there are no programs in that community to help reduce whatever was happening. So I saw where it says here there's a 10% reduction in homicides from 31 to 28, and a 39% reduction in firearm related offenses, 23 over 24. Overall, there's an 11% decrease in crime. And even 1% decrease in crime should be applauded, because it means it was different from the last year. So the present police administration and the National Security Advisor, I have to give them credit for what they're doing. But we cannot start blowing our whistle, because if we don't have things in place, I know that St. Kitts right now, they were engaging with Dr. Penn in Houston through the Houston police for a program that we had put in place where we saw a decrease in juvenile crime in St. Kitts. And they're about, I'm assuming they're about to start this program again, because we saw an uptick in juvenile crime in St. Kitts. We saw just yesterday, I saw a fight where some kids were kicking the stuffing out of another kid. You know, one of the things that we started in St. Kitts when we was there was the school resource officer program, where we had put a policeman in school. And we started off in Sandy Point because there was a kid there. He, on the 3rd of January, he got beat up. And when he came back to school, he went home at lunch dressed in black, came back with a machete and started chopping up another student.
Wow.
And so we put a cop in that school from 7 in the morning until the last kid left school that evening, and we never had a problem. We had another problem in Keyon, and we put another cop in Keyon, and we saw the stuff dropping down. Then we started putting cops in Washi, and we saw it. So that is something that they need to revisit. And the program that they're trying to bring, the TAPS program, they need to go ahead and do it quick, because from what I saw yesterday, I'm telling y'all, summer is coming. You're going to have issues over the summer unless you put things in place right now. So again, I applaud the administration for what they're doing, the efforts that they are making to help maintain the reduction in crime in the Federation.
Wow, you said a lot.
Yes.
Yes, especially
Well,
the
I'm
crime
I'm
stats.
yeah, I'm 68 years old. I've been around. I know what I'm doing. You may not be aware, but right before the U.S. elections, I was contacted by the U.S. Embassy in Trinidad, and they were asking me to apply for the Commissioner of Police job in Trinidad, and they were paying $200,000 to $300,000 a year. And I talked to my wife, and she said, "No, we ain't going to Trinidad." And then the government changed. But the fact that the U.S. government can reach out to me after the experiences we had in St. Kitts, the successes we had, even CARICOM hired me when I was in St. Kitts, and I turned them down to stay in St. Kitts. But then the election changed everything. But CARICOM had hired me to be the security person for the whole of CARICOM. Anguilla came to Anguilla. They came to St. Kitts, invited me and my wife to Anguilla for a weekend because they wanted me to run the Anguilla police. And I chose to stay in St. Kitts until the change of election, because St. Kitts is where I was born. I made 3 pledges in my life as law enforcement officer. I was going to work in St. Kitts, in the Virgin Islands, or here in the States. I worked in St. Kitts, I worked in the Virgin Islands, and I'm here working in the States. I retired from Florida law enforcement in 2011, and I'm still relevant in the space because, as you can see, I am a police chief in Texas.
Wow.
See?
Do you have a relationship? I know you already retired and everything, but do you have a relationship with any of the high command police here in St. Kitts? And of course, I'm sure you'll have that in different parts of the world, places that you have
Yes.
work.
Yes. Well, what I have done, because I am a Kittitian by birth, I'm Crucian raised, but I'm Kittitian at heart. And so I do what I can do. As a matter of fact, we just, and I have to give him the credit. He's no longer there. Commander Commander Comrie and I had a conversation last year, April, and he asked me, can you do anything to help us with some bulletproof vests? Now, you can't give bulletproof vests to military as an American. So we engaged the commissioner of police, and he said, yes, we'll share them. And even though they use vests, they're only 2 years old, we ship those with the help of the present government. We ship those to St. Kitts. So now St. Kitts military and police, they have bulletproof vests. We got that over there to them. Prior police administration, I took my money and I flew to Miami from Orlando to a police meeting. And because I was in the Virgin Islands as the deputy commissioner of police operations, that means I was in charge of the entire Virgin Islands. And we were changing our bulletproof vests. And I tried to get St. Kitts to take 100 bulletproof vests from us.
So what happened?
Free.
So what happened to that?
I felt like I was begging them.
Begging who?
I felt like
Who is
I
them?
was felt like I was begging. I felt like I was begging the police to accept the free gift. And so
Wow.
what we did, we sent them to Montserrat and Antigua, but Antigua vests got stuck in during COVID. They got stuck in Tortola. So Tortola and Montserrat benefited, and my home country, I was giving them 100 bulletproof vests because we were switching out our vests in the Virgin Islands. And it's like they were standoffish with me. So I just left them alone. Right now, I'm not going to call the name, but there's a preacher in St. Kitts that I get along with. And my daughter was a teacher. When she stopped teaching, all of her school stuff, we send them to this particular preacher in St. Kitts because we like what that preacher does with the community. We send drones to that preacher so he can teach the children how to fly drones, because that's a lucrative market if they ever come to the States. We went another thing just recently. He asked me about getting him a keyboard, and I spoke to my church here in Orlando. And just this week, they told me they have a keyboard they're gonna give to them. So I still try to help my community any which way I can. Under the previous government, I used to go to Houston and get clothes. They were used, but over here in the summer, you give up your winter clothes, and in the winter you give up your summer clothes. And when that happened, I would get these clothes and we would ship them. I wouldn't call the city, but we would ship them to St. Kitts so people can have, and they was like almost new clothes. And that's what we do. We try to help the community any which way we can.
Let me ask you a question. I know you said that they're used vest, right?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you clean them? Is it safe to use someone else's vest in terms of like how do you clean them, like to protect
That is a
someone
good
else?
question. That is a good question. Okay. So you have two types of vests. You have one that you can take the filling out because it fits into a carrier.
Okay.
So you wash the carrier and you clean the interior with whatever solution you want. All right, and you put it out, let it dry. And so whatever was in there is gone. So
Okay.
yes, I understand the question.
Yes,
But you
yes.
can disinfect it.
Yes, I was
Yes.
just asking in terms of like body sweats and stuff like that,
You're
like
correct.
yeah.
You're correct. And we only pick the best ones. We pick the best ones and then send them. Now a vest will cost you $600. If you bought it brand new, up to $1,800. There's what we call the threat levels, different threat levels. So a threat level 3 vest will cost you about $1,000.
Wow. Okay. So how important it is to have community policing, especially in the small communities?
You know what? That is a very good question.
Well,
That is a
thank
very
you.
good question. One of the things that we did when we were in St. Kitts was that we had town hall meetings, and I extended this when I went to the Virgin Islands. I used to go to St. Thomas and St. Croix, but in St. Kitts, we would go to all of the communities at least once a month and have a community meeting so we can inform the community what the police is doing. And then we would ask them the question, what is it that we as a police agency can best do to serve you? Off the record, I will say this. You'd be surprised. I know they talk a lot of stuff about me in St. Kitts, a lot of negative stuff, but that's neither here nor there. The parents of some of these bad boys, as we call them, they were glad that I was there because their children were living. Some of these mothers would call me at night and tell me where the sons were hiding the guns. And that's how we were getting the guns because they rather their sons were living. There was a young man, there are two young men in St. Kitts. One of them is dead and one of them, I believe he's in prison here in the States. But one of them, he told me one night, they had a shooting, they had murders over on Frigate Bay. They killed some kids on Frigate Bay. The target for that shooting, he came to me. He says, Commissioner, I want to thank you. He says, I now realize that whenever you send your people to lock me up, it's because you're trying to protect me. He said, I don't even argue. I know that when you're picking me up, you hear something. All right?
He was
And then
smart.
we had, yes, and it was true. And then we had another young man that he's dead now, but he was on the community development bank on the roof. And one day I was passing by and he went like this, basically like that to me, like, yeah. He says, I know what you're doing. The guys in McKnight, they came to me. I had an undercover cop inside there. I can say it now because it's more than 10 years. But I had the first dreadlocks Rasta undercover cop in St. Kitts in the gang. But these guys came and told me, says, Commissioner, we like the way you're doing things, because now we could walk. Now we could walk.
That's it
He
right.
says, but you
That's it right there. Now we
mhm,
can walk. They can
now
walk
we
the
can walk.
streets.
Yeah. Do
Hmm.
you know how I used to check how what we were doing was working? Two simple ways. Right there by Westbourne Gut by Greenlands.
Yes.
Okay, they used to have a lot of food selling there at night.
Yeah, they're still on the side.
Okay,
Yeah. Hmm.
they're still there? Okay.
Hmm.
Well, when we got there, that was almost empty. But as we started our patrols, people started hanging out on that corner so strong that we had to make them move off the street. The next thing that we also used to do was the Kim Collins Highway.
Hmm.
We used to go there at 5 o'clock in the morning. Literally, I used to go there and see how many women are walking up and down that street. Because when we first got there, people weren't walking. And so that's how we were measuring the success of what we were doing. The community policing is very important, but the police department needs to understand that community policing is not a department. I see a lot of police departments, they try to have a unit that's community policing. That's not what it's all about. It is about every police officer in that police agency becoming a community policing officer. We live in the community, and the community is us. So when my neighbor has an issue, he should be able to come to me and talk to me and tell me about that without it going someplace else. And that's
Doctor,
why, and
doc,
and and
so,
that's hold on one second. And that's why we created the Crime Stoppers in St. because we brought it in when we were there, and it was reported to Canada. Okay, that's about it.
Dr. Walwyn, as a child growing up, I remember in the community in St. Peter's, that is when the majority of the people in the villages had to take bus. They didn't have transportations. But I remember where you will have the police, not just a corporal, but the sergeants or inspectors, what you call it, superintendents,
Yes.
and the person that in charge of the police station. We used to see those people in the communities. For instance, I don't like to talk about foreign countries because every country run differently. But it is very good when we are seeing officers on the street knowing that it's not just a particular officer, but just respecting the police itself, whether you have what you call it, stats or ranks, you should be, civilians should be seeing you on the streets. It don't have to
They
be
should know
every
who you
single,
are.
huh?
They
Hello.
should know who you are.
They should know who you
They should
are.
know
And
you. Yes.
absolutely. It
Yes.
don't have to be every single day, but if they actually see you and see you often enough, you would not look as if like you're just going to the community just for that time to say, well, oh, I show up. No, it's supposed to be a thing for you to show up. Matter of fact, not just police, but anyone that's serving the federation, the communities should be seeing them. It is good for children as well. It's good for the youths to see mentorship and to not see a uniform to be just coming in to solve a crime or to basically just take, people need to see more of a friendly, and if you happen to be there in the community, it's not all the time, like I said, just coming in because you come in to show your police force.
I agree with
And
you,
when I
and I
say
will tell
police
you.
force, meaning your, help me please.
Okay, the police should have a presence in the community. That's true. Your camera is frozen.
Huh?
Oh, okay. Now you're good now. Okay, so let's go back to St. Peter's.
Yes.
And by the way, my father was a police superintendent in St. Kitts. All right. As a matter of fact, I'm related to the bakery people up in the Bass. Those are my
Yes.
cousins on my father's side. But
It
let me
looks
tell
like
you,
you're
there was
related to
a.
everybody in St. Kitts, man.
That's what I'm telling you. My father had 35 children.
Huh?
So I'm with. My father had 35 of us with 32 women. So
Huh?
I'm related to everybody.
Huh?
I'm related to everybody in St. Kitts. So you
I
never
guess
know who
I
you're
guess
talking
I
about.
guess that was the days when they didn't have contraceptives, so we understand. It's okay.
Let's go back to St. Peter's. So in St. Peter's, there was a sergeant at the time. Her name was Rosemary Isles. And Rosemary Isles, she was in charge of that area. And every Thursday, she would foot patrol through that town, that village, with her officers. So people knew who she was. One of the first things we did when we came to St. Kitts in 2011 was we created the Delta Squad. The Delta was based on something we had in Orlando, where we would patrol the neighborhoods on foot. And so the Delta officers, police and soldiers trained, we would walk through Bastia, walk through country, walk through Nevis on foot, not driving a car, but walking on foot. And the people appreciated that. While I was there, with the tourist patrol, we had a line of people, island constables, who would patrol within line of sight because we didn't have enough radios. When I left, St. Kitts government paid $1.5 million and bought a walkie-talkie system because our system was so bad we couldn't talk around the corner. When we left, you could talk from Deep Bay over to Nevis on the other side of Nevis with this system. You could be down in the Crevet, down in Brimson Hill, and still talk. I don't know what that system is now. We also put in cameras in St. Kitts. We were the first ones that put these cameras in St. Kitts. As a matter of fact, when Kevin, the shop on Spratt Street, when they got robbed that night, I got a call from a citizen that says, "Hey, I just saw these guys putting on masks going up Central Street. I got the cameras from Central Street. I saw the guys putting on the mask. Then I saw them over at Kevin Place, and Kevin returned fire because they were shooting at him. But I saw one of the guys put his palm on top of the car. And I was able to tell my people to dust that car for prints, and we found out who he was. All right?
Dr. C.G.
But
Walwyn, 1 second. Someone is saying best thing ever happened to the police was the Delta Force.
tell him thank you. Because the one thing that we promoted in Delta would not violate anybody's civil rights. We had one officer who beat somebody, and we got
I think we're expecting a call, so a pleasant good evening. You're live with Real Talk. Our special guest is none other than Dr. C.J. Walwyn. Good evening to you, caller.
Yeah, good evening to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
And good evening to the guests.
good evening, sir.
Walwyn there. I got two questions for the guests. First question is, we know we hear a lot of complaints about the police department about, corruption is everywhere. Corruption is all over the world. But let's zero in on the Federation for a quick minute. I heard you talk about community. The question about the community policing, that was a great question. We talking about police in the community, right? But the complaints about the police force being corrupted, and we have people talking about, like, evidence is disappearing. The police themselves, their behavior pattern is not such that the people would need to see. How could we get that corruption eradicated and bring back the trust, the community trust? We need the people to have the trust back in the police. That's one question.
Okay, that's one.
And then second question is, when we're talking about the traffic incidents, right? You said that no high-speed chasing because we know who these people are. So why, when we have these traffic incidents and persons die from as a result, right? Why no one's being charged and it's the vehicle that has the owner? Why we not seeing any persons charged with certain incidents? Those are my two questions. And thanks a lot, man. Listen off the ear.
Okay, thank you. Good question, but I'll answer the last one first. That question about the non-charging of persons involved in vehicular homicide, then that's going to have to be taken up with your DPP. They will have to answer the question. I'm sure the police can, if they want to, refer charges if they have the evidence to submit, and then it's up to the DPP to go ahead and do that. But I like his first question even better, because as simple as his question was, it's a multiple part answer. Because I too, while I was there, a lot of people say I was arresting people without evidence. That's not true. He just hit the nail on the head. Sometimes the evidence disappeared from the police storage. I'll give you two examples. If you're familiar with Bastia Police Station, downstairs where they used to play tennis, remember people could go in there when we were kids and play table tennis with the police? Okay, I took some of that space and I created a the storage unit for the police. I had Lieutenant Alexander. He was the head guy in St. Croix. I'm trained by the FBI in fingerprinting, advanced fingerprinting. And this guy, when I was a kid in St. Croix, he was my mentor in the police work. So when he retired in Atlanta, I brought him to St. Kitts. We created a storage room in St. Kitts. The CIA gave me the fingerprint locks to put on it. The same Kevin, the Chinese guy on Spratt Street, I don't know if he's still there, that guy gave me air conditions and cameras. And the reason why we did that, we wanted to make sure that the evidence room stayed locked. First of all, there was a problem, and I'm saying this, and I'm going to get a lot of negative calls when I'm done, but I'm going to tell the truth. On the second floor in the police station, people up there they had a hole knocked out in the floor. It was right over the evidence room, and they would climb through that hole down into the evidence room and steal evidence. Okay? Steal stuff out of there. So, and these were police officers. And so we fixed it. We had it fixed. And then we put cameras and AC in there, and we could see you coming right or left to that door. But I also had a camera inside in case you broke back in there. We could see who you were. And that stopped that. We also had, talking about the corruption, we brought in internal affairs to St. Kitts. We brought in from the Justice Department a team that taught internal affairs. We sent Rosemary Isles to the U.S. Virgin Islands again to learn how to study internal affairs. We gave them their own office for internal affairs. And then when I left, I was told that she was removed because she was trying to bring charges against police officers. If you're a cop and you're a bad cop, you need to be prosecuted. It's that simple. And she was doing her job and she was removed from there for that purpose. We trained so many cops there for internal affairs. Matter of fact, I had one of the quote unquote bad guys. When I left, he filed a complaint and it was said that his comments were, and I quote, "We're filing a complaint now because C.G. Walwyn is not here. We were afraid of C.G. Walwyn. We're not afraid of these cops. If they put their hands on us again, we're going to deal with it. So we're coming to you first." And it should never get to that stage. The people should feel safe in making their complaints. And so this man is correct. If there's corruption, it needs to be addressed. And two last things I'm going to tell you about that. Like I say, his question is multifold. I had a bad guy. We were putting him in witness protection. We created the first witness protection program in St. Kitts, where if you had an issue with testifying, we could get you off the island and put you someplace. While we were waiting to get this guy shipped off the island, the guy told me, he says, "Hey, I'm going to tell you something. You got the guns unlocked. You got the drugs unlocked in this country. People don't like you because you're stopping stuff from happening. You're messing with their money." He said, "But you need to be aware. This particular businessman is giving this particular guy money to buy us guns, and somebody in your police agency is bringing in the guns." And he gave me the names. And then I had a gang member. He ended up getting murdered. He came to me one day and he says, "Commissioner, I need a gun permit." I said, "I can't give you one because you already got a charge for shooting somebody." And he said to me, he said, "Commissioner, don't trust anybody in this police station." He says, "One of your people," I'm not calling any names, "one of your people, when they get drunk, they're asking us if we're afraid to do stuff, if we're going to let you punk us." And this is coming from the police.
How come the charges was never brought against that particular person if they know how corrupt the officer was, or officers?
Okay. Because again, in St. Kitts, and this is why I applaud the DPP for that last arrest that he made. What you know and what you can prove in court is two different things. That's number one. And just because you have, I'll give you an example. We had a lady, she saw a homicide. She came and gave a written statement identifying the guys that committed the homicide. About 2 weeks later, her lawyer sent a letter to me telling us that she changed her mind and she will not testify. All right? So what this DPP just did the other day, when he's saying that these people are trying to change the outcome of a case by interfering in the case. We have had that happen so many times in St. Kitts. Happened to me with people that come in that they said, "We saw this," and they gave a statement, and then when it's time to go to testify, they disappear. Or they don't want to testify because they're scared. So that's the reason why. But we made sure it never happened again because we put those things in place. What's happening now, I don't know because I'm no longer there. Like I said, I respect the present commissioner of police and I will support the present commissioner of police. But we also need to understand as police executives that we cannot do anything without the community. We can put every policeman on the corner, but if the community does not support us, we're not getting anywhere. And beating up citizens is not the answer.
That is so true. There's also office abuse. I know for sure office abuse within the police force. And
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Persons that use the office, use the powers of
Okay.
the office, and to hurt other people. But in the meantime, we have another caller. You're live on the Real Talk with Lavi Gumbs.
Okay. If a person feels that they're being abused by someone because of their position, there are measures in St. Kitts that can be addressed.
Well,
I believe there's a
right. That also, but you have situation also where someone is calling in again. You're live on the Real Talk with Lavi.
Okay, yeah, good evening. Let me get back to Commissioner, just because of what he just said, right? I just want to take maybe 30 seconds and engage him for a minute. He said he doesn't know what's going on in the Federation right now. And he was talking about the juror, the person, the witness, who made a statement and then withdraw. So then, therefore, recently we had conversations about the jurors. Even I don't know if there was a juror that was killed, but the jurors are being threatened, and that led to a law that was passed recently, taking the federation back to a single judge trial. I want to get his opinion on that, and then that's my last thing for the night. Thanks a lot.
Just before Dr. C.G. Walwyn, before you give your advice, I just want to let the caller know that you are a former commissioner of police. I just want to let him know that this is not the current commissioner of police. So you can go ahead now.
Okay. And thank you for the clarification. And I can hear the passion in his
And
voice.
we're also going to be wrapping up in the next 5 minutes, okay? So.
Okay, no problem. And so I'm not familiar with that, so I really can't comment on it. However, I do know that during our time, we had a lot of interference. One of the allegations that I've heard with the last decision by the DPP was that there may have been some improper behavior that was discovered and then it was trying to be muted. We've had that happen in St. Kitts, and that is the reason why we created the Special Victims Unit, because we found a man that was using peanut butter on his, messing with his own child, who was 3 years old. We had a 13-year-old who filed a complaint against a relative, and they were allegedly asked if they enjoyed it when they reported to the relative what that other relative had done. And so you can find me on YouTube. It'll say St. Kitts Inspector Speaks Out. And I was a commissioner, but they said inspector. And we created the Special Victims Unit. I went to the United States government in Barbados, and we went to Dallas. They gave us money and hotels and training in Dallas. And we came back and we started the Special Victims Unit. And we started arresting people who were molesting children in St. Kitts. The first person who got arrested under my watch was a police officer who got 24 years for messing with a 14-year-old. And so we did that. We also did things to domestic violence. I also tried to get the age of consent to be raised to 18 years old. And I was told by the person I was speaking to that parents will not let their children come to court to testify, so it'll be a waste of government's time. So again, the present DPP, he has my heart for what he did. If you are breaking the law in St. Kitts and there is evidence that you are breaking the law, you need to be prosecuted, period. That's it.
Well, I got to tell you, thank you so much for being here on the Real Talk with Lavi. I think that you have shared a lot, even some of the questions I really thought you was going to answer, so I gave you that credit as well to answer the caller. So thank you so much once again for being here, and I hope that in the near future you can continue to be a part of the Real Talk with Lavi and share your experience, and just keep in touch with your hometown, because no matter what, whether you're a commissioner or you're not a commissioner, you are a Kittitian. And it is very good when you can, take some time out and come here and share back with the people and face the people. As you said, some gonna like what you said, some not gonna like what you didn't say, but there's a lot of person that said that Dr. C.G. Walwyn did well for St. Kitts and Nevis. And I also heard some police person said that you made a difference in the police force. So if nobody tell you, I am telling you what other persons have said. Thank you so much for being here. It is 8:22, but before we leave, do you have any final words?
Yes, I just want to say to the present police administration, to the men and women with their feet on the ground, this is our community, and we must serve and protect without fear or favor. I support you. I will do whatever I can to continue to support you. I know that I am away from St. Kitts, but my heart is still there. I listen to your show every week, whenever you're on. And if I miss it tonight, tomorrow while I'm driving, I play it in my car.
Can I ask you why you listen to this show?
I listen to the show because you are in touch with the diaspora. And so those of us who are out here, we can hear what is happening at home in a non-political manner. Not everybody want to hear political stuff,
Sure.
you know, and we can get that from this show. So that's why we listen. The people again, the police again. I'm thankful that you permitted me to serve you. The people of St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm happy and thankful that you permitted me to serve you also, and I will always be here, no matter who is sitting in the government seat, no matter who is sitting at the helm as the police commissioner. As long as I can help, I will. That's it.
Well, thank you so much. I learned a lot from you also. Once again, this is Real Talk with Lavi. We have come to the end of the program, and our special guest was none other than the former Commissioner of Police, Dr. C.V. Walwyn, and he's also the present Commissioner of Chiefs over there in Texas. So I just want to let him know that we really appreciate him, and this is how we're able to have the real talk by having persons, reaching out or just want to give back and share. This is the only way you're going to be heard, not just on my show. It's nothing about me really, but it's to use this platform to help other people. So once again, Mr. Walwyn, Dr. Walwyn, thank you for being here. Next week, our guest is going to be a young man. He's going to be coming to share his story and, speak his point of view as a young man. So he and Lavi is going to have a conversation. Tomorrow, I want everyone to join with me as I open up the doors to start celebrating my beautiful birthday on April 4th, but I will be going to breakfast and I will be doing a live. If anyone wants to come and greet me in person, see who is Lavi, and just want to be a part of greatness that is happening in St. Kitts, as Dr. Walwyn said, ain't everybody want to hear about politics. People want to hear about real people. People want to hear about Lavi's celebration. So tomorrow, join me as I start celebrating my birthday. And I'm going to look cute, people. You see me? This is not even me, so I'm going to share with you my journey of my hair, my wig. I try to do what the young people are doing, but I want to age grace. I want to age with grace, gracefully. So I want to age, as I get older, I want to let people know. Embrace your age. You're old when you're dead. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.
Let's get real on WINN FM. Hi, this is Lavi.